Welcome to Answers in 2nd Esdras, a new series by the God Culture. We opened with Ezra's exact prophecy of Yahusha's coming in the flesh in 400 years from his time, and turns out Messiah came around 0 BC, just before it, and even by the name Yahusha, even exactly as Ezra predicted. Having been able to affirm 2nd Esdras used to interpret in the Dead Sea Scrolls with prophecies that only originate in this book, this prophecy proves to be before Messiah, not after, and this is mega evidence that this book is inspired scripture. Now it's time for what Ezra calls the continuation of Daniel's vision of the end times in the 4 beasts. We're going to explain that fully, identify the 4th beast in that prophecy, but Ezra is going to take it to another level, and it's amazing. Over these next videos, you'll see for yourself. We will take the next 2 videos to really break this down, and some may well be shocked at the perfect accuracy of this and where it leads in today's terms. We can see this today, folks. We can see it forming. We can see how it's formed. Before we go to 2nd Esdras, though, as it is the basis, let's take the opening 4 minutes or so to really break down Daniel 2 and 7, just quick videos for you, with Nebuchadnezzar's statue, which Daniel interpreted from his dream, and the 4 beasts of Daniel. These are the same empire, and Ezra will explain as well. He saw a statue of metals representing the current and coming empire, which would lead to world empire in the enlarging of Japheth. First, it had a head of gold, and that represents the gold kingdom of Babylon. We don't have to guess because Daniel says it was. The coming empire, Daniel could also see rising the breasts and arms of silver for Medo-Persia, who conquered Babylon and was known for its silver. The belly and thighs were of brass, and this is Greece, known for brass alloys, who conquered Medo-Persia. And finally, then came the legs of iron, the Roman Empire, the Iron Legion, who conquered Greece. There was no gap between these, and these are clear cut. But this last one, his feet, are a mixture of iron, Rome, and clay. And there has been much written about this, but Daniel clarifies it himself. We'll cover that next, but can you see a pattern here based on the mapping of Jubilees? All of these areas are from Japheth, and we know the principalities involved. Babylon is Madai with demon prince of Persia, Ashmedai. Medo-Persia is the same, yes, both sides. Greece is Javan under the prince of Grecia, and the Roman Empire is Tubal, the source of Prince Gog's power, along with the final empire as well. This is all Japheth's territory. But we know the princes of darkness who really drive this empire. And ultimately, though names change, this is the world empire, further predicted by the prophets and in Revelation. So Daniel effectively identifies the rising of the one world empire. Thou, O King, art a King of kings, for the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field, and the fowls of the heaven, hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee. And behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear, and it was raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. And another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. And the 4th kingdom shall be strong as iron, forasmuch as iron breaketh in pieces, and subdueth all things. And as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom, which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Forasmuch as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it brake in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold. Who is this rock that topples this final empire? This is the chief cornerstone, the stone the builders rejected, and yes, even the rock explained to Peter, as Peter's revelation was not of himself as a rock, but the rock upon which the ecclesia would be built, which must be the chief cornerstone, not Peter, Messiah. No man could possibly fulfill his mission. Watch Peter, was Peter the rock, for details. One last thing in Daniel, and we will open 2nd Esdras. Now, these empires have no gap as each conquers its predecessor. And that's just fact. The question remains, when did the Roman Empire collapse into the final empire? And what was it at that point? And moving forward. We will cover that in detail coming. But let us not forget, the new Roman Empire, that was its name, is recorded in history as moving to Turkey by Constantine about 324 AD. It matters not whether someone agrees with that or not. The final empire is still the final empire. We just believe that is when it began, and we'll support that. That's when he infused the Catholic religion, which was not practicing the Bible religion at all, even at that time, even from its inception, and we will deal with that in our next book, in fact. Instead, that's being infused with government, with the empire. It's now a religious empire, which would become called the Holy Roman Empire. It's no longer just the Roman Empire. Now, this was the beginning of the final empire, set up in Turkey, which was what? Well, that's where the seat of Satan is, Revelation 2:13, and where the synagogue of Satan operated at that time, according to Messiah, Revelation 2:9 and 3:9. Wow. Now, we do not believe it waited until 476 AD or whatever, as the moving of its capitals was the change to a new empire, period, which now infused government and religion even deeper and attacked the actual biblical ecclesia, the 7 ecclesias of Turkey. Now, Ezra is going to define the dynamic of this final empire, including its principality, as an empire which hides its power until the end, in letting its lesser powers appear to lead. But they're only part of the body, and the body is much larger. However, it is one empire and has lasted since then, and will until the end, though it takes different forms in appearance, and Ezra exposes this in detail. One last thing in Daniel, though, is its interpretation of the final empire, the feet of iron, which is Rome, and I think pretty much most scholars, if not all, are on board with that, mixed with miry clay. Now, we've seen a lot of speculation. What could the miry clay be? I can't imagine. Oh, wow. Well, let's just read Daniel 2:43. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron. These are the feet mixed with iron and clay. It's Rome still. The iron's still there. It's the empire of iron, but it's mixed with something else. The kingdom shall be divided. Well, it will be, and it is, and it has been, and Ezra will explain this division in detail, which is more an appearance than anything else. In fact, it's being directed from a voice within we'll cover. But there shall be in it to the strength of iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. So we don't really need a scholar here. The prophet Daniel tells us what he meant by this miry clay and iron. And man, have we heard so much speculation on this from the pulpit over the years. Now, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. Again, Ezra will explain exactly what this means. And whereas thou sawest iron with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. Now, wait a minute. How do you mix seeds? Think about that, because that's what it's saying. How do you mingle one seed with another, which is a different seed? Only if you have 2 different species of sort, right? Now, they, whoever they are, mingle or mix their seed with the seed of men, meaning they are not men. And we've covered this in part, and that is not their typical seed. They're not men. Who are they then? Well, they are the Genesis 6 Nephilim of sort. Same mixing going on here, but now into the leadership of this final empire. This is not me speaking. Nope. They make their own claims. The royal bloodlines claim rule by blood, as many claim the blood of the gods, essentially. Well, what gods? Who are they talking about? Well, for instance, Clovis Merovingian is known to claim that he's from the blood of Poseidon. Well, that's one of the fallen angels, one of the Watchers, who fathered the 10 giant priest kings of Atlantis in that legend. In fact, what he's doing is he's claiming he's from the giants that ruined the earth who led Atlantis. That's who he's saying he is. Probably, maybe he doesn't realize it, though he probably did. They tell us they hail from Nephilim bloodlines even. It's right there. But they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. Again, Ezra will actually expound on this. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. Now, don't forget, in all of these first videos, we're unveiling this final empire. This is not a negative story in the end. For Yahushua triumphs in the end, and believers will be raised up and reign with him. But we should understand what day in which we live. Now, we are ready to start 2nd Esdras, which we will begin this week to lay foundation and then explain over the next weeks, because this is important. By the end of this portion of this series, you will know whom the final empire is and how it operates. Daniel goes pretty far, but wait till you see Ezra's Eagle Empire vision, the continuation of Daniel's vision. This week we read the passage with a little interjection, then we will interpret the big picture, then we will hone in on the final 3 heads that are mentioned here by Ezra, and their ends. The lion who destroys this empire. At that point we will go into the Dead Sea Scrolls and cover passages which date this book prior to Messiah with this exact prophecy in 100 or so BC, as it is used to interpret at least 2 fragments we'll show you. Who are these powers? We will especially focus on the 3 heads of the eagle, who are the power, as well as the voice from within, and even we'll talk about the 2 opposing feathers as we go through. You will know, and this is going to be good. Turn your 2nd Esdras to chapter 11, the vision of the eagle. Then I saw a dream, and behold, there came up from the sea an eagle, the beast that rises from the sea, Revelation 13:1, we just saw it in Daniel as well, which had 12 feathered wings and 3 heads. And I saw, and behold, she spread her wings over all the earth, and all the winds of the air blew on her, and were gathered together. Now a large portion of the earth is subdued under her power, remember that. And I beheld, and out of her feathers there grew other contrary feathers, we'll cover, and they became little feathers and small. They are contrary or against the body, but bear in mind, still of the same body. Get that. This is still the same empire, regardless of the antithesis set within, which is exactly how the elite system operates today, and they've told us such. We have much history recording that tactic. But her heads were at rest. The head in the middle was greater than the other, yet it rested with the rest. So here, the heads await their unveiling. They are hidden powers, but they are heads. They are the true powers. This is an empire which hides its power. Now that's important to understand, and this will really become clear. This is so everyone attacks the smaller powers. It's actually very brilliant, and not the root ones. Moreover, I beheld, and lo, the eagle flew with her feathers, and reigned upon the earth, and over them that dwelt therein. This is a worldwide empire. And I saw that all things under heaven were subject unto her, and no man spoke against her, no, not one creature upon earth. This is because they don't see the full body. They only see the little powers who rise to rule, and they do not connect them because it is an unthinkable evil. This series will connect this, and no, you'll never see this in modern, what they call history. Verse 7, And I beheld, and lo, the eagle rose up upon her talons, and spoke to her feathers, saying, Watch not all at once. Now, everyone doesn't rule at the same time in this empire, but it shifts and cycles. Very interesting. Sleep, everyone in his own place, and watch by course. So they have courses. In other words, they take turns ruling in appearance. But this is still the same body. All these governments and empires are the same. Daniel cannot be wrong, and there is not a day in between the Roman Empire and this final one, which includes Rome. Now, but let the heads be preserved for the last. See, the true leadership in this empire is preserved or hidden until the end. This is incredibly fitting of all prophecy on this topic, really. And I beheld, and lo, the voice went not out of her heads, but from the middle of her body. Oh, wait a minute. If the voice doesn't come from the heads, from your mouth, those are the true leaders in power, in government power, but that means there is a power even behind all of this, and it is within the body. Now, what power possesses the body and is not a head, nor a wing, nor a feather, nor talons? We call that a demon. It's a principality. Who does the Bible say this is in the last days? Well, it's not Satan, though it's his number one. Satan doesn't actually possess people. When the Bible says that, Satan means adversary. It's talking about a demon in all cases. But it's the same aim. They work together. They have their infrastructure and their system. Specifically, though, this is the principality Gog of Magog. Verse 11. And I numbered her contrary feathers, and behold, there were 8 of them, 8 governments that appear to be the antithesis or enemy of this empire. This is well recorded in history, and you will see, but it's still the same body. Don't forget that. All of this is a puppet show when you think of it. There's one puppet master. He's that voice in the center of the body, Gog of Magog. Now, and I looked, and behold, on the right side there arose one feather, and reigned over all the earth. Just a feather, not a head yet. Still, they aren't awakened. They're still asleep. Not truly significant, but it ruled the earth. Not necessarily every person. None of these mean every person. Even the beast doesn't rule every person. Understand that. So, but a large portion of the earth, that's all this is saying. These are worldwide empires. That doesn't mean they're in every country. They're not, of course not. Even the final empire, even at the very, very height of its power, at the very, very end, when the beast rules, he still doesn't rule everyone, ever. Again, this is just a feather, so we know in comparison, it will not compare to the heads when they awaken. And that will be a power that will be truly evil and incredibly powerful. You'll see. And so it was that when it rained, the end of it came, and the place thereof appeared no more. So the next following stood up and reigned, and had a great time. Had a great time indeed. Understand, these empires are within the last empire. It's all one. They are feathers, but still part of the same body. They weren't removed. History's rarely viewed this way, yet we all should be connecting things. This is all one. And it happened that when it rained, the end of it came also, like as the first, so that it appeared no more. Understand, these empires reign, then disappear. However, you will still find these countries in history. The countries continue, but you will not find them as empires. They don't have the world power that they once did. They've disappeared from power on the world scene, the world stage. They are not gone yet, but we'll get there too. Then came there a voice unto it, and said, Hear you, that is born rule over the earth so long, this I say unto you, before you begin to appear no more. Now, this is that same voice from the inside. It's Gog of Magog, the prince demon. He's controlling even the downfall of these empires. Understand that. This is all a part of the plan to foster the very end times in the end and the rise of the 3 heads as they finally awakened later. There shall none after you attain unto your time. So this one was large, neither unto the half thereof. So he doesn't want anyone flashing too much power. See, that's kind of what he's saying here, because it would give him away. His doctrine is to hide the true power, so the world doesn't notice until the end when it is too late. Then arose the third and reigned as the other before, and appeared no more also. Disappeared. Again, still there, but the power disappeared. It's not an empire anymore. So it went with all the rest, one after another, as that every one reigned, and then appeared no more. A lot of empires or ruling governments all cycling through the same body. Remember that, as they are all one empire. Then I beheld, and lo, in the process of time, the feathers that followed stood up upon the right side, that they might rule also, and some of them ruled, but within a while they appeared no more. Looks like chaos, doesn't it? But what is this? This is actually the doctrine of the order from chaos, the motto of the current world elite, in fact. They even tell us this is how they operate. For some, just look at the back of the American dollar bill. I mean, it's right there. It's not conspiracy. It's fact. They put it in writing. For some of them were set up, but ruled not. So it was determined, or the conditions were not right for their rule for whatever reason. God has his plan. But all those rules were temporary. Yet, for the body, this all remains one rule throughout time, from its beginning with the Roman Empire when it rose out of it. Verse 22. After this I looked, and behold, the 12 feathers appeared no more, nor the 2 little feathers, and there was no more upon the eagle's body. They were all gone, but 3 heads that rested, and 6 little wings. No more feathers. He is becoming exposed, literally. The 3 heads, the true power, still remain hidden, and there are 6 wings now. Then saw I also that 2 little feathers divided themselves from the 6, and remained under the head that was upon the right side. For the 4 continued in their place. 2 feathers divide from the world power, appearing 2, yet they really don't, do they? They affix to one of the heads the true power of still yet the same empire. See, this is all finagling, and it's still one empire. And this is the way people look at history. Oh, the Roman Empire, the Spanish Empire, the Portuguese, Yeah, you can't look at history that way, and Ezra tells us so. The one funded them and founded their new order, perhaps, but we'll get there. And I beheld, and lo, the feathers that were under the wing, thought to set up themselves, and to have the rule. And I beheld, and lo, there was one set up, but shortly it appeared no more. And the second was sooner away than the first. And I beheld, and lo, the 2 that remained thought also in themselves to reign. See, again, this all looks like chaos, but it's still one body. We're watching a puppet show here. And when they so thought, behold, there awakened one of the heads that were at rest. Namely, it was in the middle, for that was greater than the other 2 heads. This is the largest and greatest empire in the world in history, and we're going to get there. We're going to unveil this. It triumphed over the 2 wings that were left, as you see. And then I saw that the 2 other heads were joined with it. Now that's a 3-headed eagle, essentially. Where have we seen that in history? We'll show you. And behold, the head was turned with them that were with it, and did eat up the 2 feathers under the wing that would have reigned. Now he didn't absorb them, they ate them, and they destroyed them. So, wow. But this head put the whole earth in fear, and bare rule in it over all those that dwell upon the earth, with much oppression. And it had the governance of the world more than all the wings that had been. The largest empire in history. Now this is clear, and we're going to get there, not in this video, but we're going to have one dedicated just to this, and we're going to identify this fully. And after this I beheld, and lo, the head that was in the midst suddenly appeared no more, like as the wings. So this largest empire lost its power, or handed over its power to another. Again, still a nation, even today, but not an empire ruling the world anymore, not the same power. But there remained the two heads, which also in like sort ruled upon the earth, and over those that dwelt therein. Just two heads remaining in leadership. So the second head was handed the power of the world empire. Who is that? We'll get there. 35. And I beheld, and lo, the head upon the right side devoured it that was upon the left side. So the right head is the true power here. Not even the center and larger, but the right head hidden to the very end even. Look at that. Far more powerful than was revealed until it devours this second head. You're going to find this is actually not difficult to identify, and this power has been all along since this empire started. Asleep perhaps, hiding its power, definitely. Who is this? We'll lay this out fully in the next videos. So we have one final eagle empire. It is associated with the eagle for good reason, and we can follow it through history. It hides its power as to not appear so large, and that becomes the oppressive enemy to much of the world, and it absorbs the attack in response, not the body. See, very smart, but very evil. The whole time, the true power is preserved according to Ezra. Its power grows as each feather and wing conquers, steals, absorbs, and passes on. The order out of the chaos is always another part of this same body. We are watching a puppet show with the same puppet master for all of these through this history, over 1,000 years. We will not speculate on every power, which is not necessary to understand this. And I already know someone say, oh, but you're a false prophet because the third power must be this instead of that. Whatever. You guys can play that game if you want. We're not. But we will fully identify the three heads. The two contrary feathers we'll even mention because they'll remain, you'll see, till the end as powers. And they are the antithesis, we'll explain. This will bring much clarity to Daniel's vision and an understanding of the end times, really brought into focus. The demon controlling voice within the body is very telling, as this is the principality of the end times, Gog of Magog. He even tells some not to rise and to fall. See, he's truly in control. Ultimately, he is the true controller of the whole thing. But then when the three heads rise, realize this empire was growing all along. The power is handed to it, and then it conquers even more and grows to history's largest empire. But then the second head is handed its power, and the true power in leadership behind it all. Well, that also remains Gog of Magog inside. And it rears its ugly head. It devours the second head. The third head devours the second head. And proves that it's even more powerful and has been all along, just asleep, just hidden, or really just not showing us its power. This is the true power concealed, and it comes out even in Revelation, and this matches fully and truly is its origin, really. There is so much to this, and we can't wait to get to it in the next video. But that's next week. See you then. We're just warming up. In the meantime, we hope that everyone got at least a little something from this video in further understanding Daniel already, which will become crystal clear soon as these answers are in 2nd Esdras. Yah bless to everyone. In 400 BC, the prophet Ezra predicted, "For my son Yahusha shall be revealed with those that be with him, and they that remain shall rejoice within 400 years." Essentially, 0 BC, the era Messiah was born, and by his very name, in exactness. "After these years shall my son Messiah die, and all men that have life." The origin of John 3:16. "And the time shall be when these things shall come to pass, and the signs shall happen which I showed you before. And then shall my Son be declared, whom you saw as a man ascending." Even the end times are defined long before the book of Revelation. The Son of Elohim being confessed in the world. After 7 days, the world will be raised up. Mass resurrection of those who are asleep. The judgment seat. Evil will disappear. The Lion of Yehudah will consume the final empire, consuming his enemies with fire from his mouth. The lost tribes return. Every eye shall see him, handing out crowns and giving palms. The road to salvation is a narrow gate. Few are saved. The Garden of Eden and the Tree of Life are opened in the end. He is not willing that any should perish. The signs of the end times and origin of Matthew 24 in part. These are just some of the many prophecies in the book of 2nd Esdras, long before the book of Revelation was conceived. 2nd Esdras, written before John's revelation. This is the interpretation of the dream which you saw, and whereby you only are here lightened. For you have forsaken your own way, and applied your diligence unto my law, and sought it. That's Yahuwah speaking to the prophet Ezra. 2nd Esdras is dated at least 1st century BC, as it is used to interpret Habakkuk and blessing of the prince of the congregation, who is Messiah. This includes a radiocarbon dating testing as well of one fragment from 120-5 BC. We cover this in the introduction. This book includes 1st Esdras as well, which is also dated to the 1st century BC, when one examines what is called in fraud the Proto-Esther fragments from the Dead Sea Scrolls, which do not remotely fit Esther, but are a match to 1st Esdras. We cover this in the introduction of this book, as well as on our YouTube videos on Esther in the original canon series. 2nd Esdras was quoted by Messiah according to the original authorized 1611 King James Version. Matthew 23, 37, and 38 is a direct quote from 2nd Esdras, which is anchored right there in the margin note as the origin of Messiah's words. For Esdras is 2nd Esdras, which we explain in the introduction. Yes, he quoted 2nd Esdras multiple times. When accurately dated, 2nd Esdras proves the origin of significant doctrine in the New Testament. We cover many such instances in the introduction. There is a reason why these two books remain in some Bible canons to this day. They test as inspired Scripture. Test them for yourself. Get your copy now, free in ebook. Again, this content is free. If you would like it in print, it is available on Amazon internationally and Shopee Philippines. Just go to esdras.org. Download the ebook, and the links are there for your area.